Picture this, decades from now, your grandkids ask why you didn't buy XRP when it was under 50 cents. Because now it's $5,000 per coin. Sounds a little bit like a crypto fairy tale, right? Well, one top developer in the XRP community just joked about that kind of exact scenario, happening maybe sooner than you would think. And it kind of got me both excited and just a little bit uneasy. You see, I came across this bold claim on my newsfeed, and I honestly had to do a bit of a double take. Was this guy for real? And it turns out that he was being a little bit cheeky, but there is a serious lesson behind the humor here. See, today I want to take you on this story of this $5,000 XRP prediction as a personal journey, from a skeptical kind of chuckle to a cautiously optimistic outlook. Now, along the way, I'm going to revisit the biggest missed opportunities in crypto history, see how it can relate to XRP, and explore whether $5,000 XRP is pure fantasy or a future reality. So stick around, because this wild ride might just change how you think about your crypto strategy, and I promise it's worth it. Okay, so before we jump in, here's a quick heads up. We do have a free educational Discord linked in the description below. It's a friendly place where we chat about crypto, share lessons, and then we help each other navigate this crazy market. You are invited to join us there and continue this conversation after the video. All right, so back to the story. So the XRP community was buzzing with this, thanks to a tweet from a developer named Vincent Van Code. Now, he's a well-known software engineer in the XRP scene, and he decided to post a little, scenario and, a little kind of surreal dialogue, if you will. Now, just imagine, the scenario here. A grandparent in the future is trying to explain to their grandkids why they ignored XRP when it was under 50 cents. Now, the punchline here is that because now the same XRP is worth $5,000, and the grandkid realizes that he will have to work a regular 9 until 5 job, since the family missed the crypto opportunity of a lifetime. Kind of ouch, right? Well, Vincent ended the post with a cheeky little warning. Don't be that grandpapa, do your own research. In kind of plain English here, don't be the grandpa who missed out, and do your own research, of course. When I read that, I couldn't help but laugh at the way that he put it, right? But I also felt that kind of pit in my stomach here, because it struck a chord, didn't it, right? None of us want to be the person telling future generations, yeah, I had a chance to buy XRP under $1, but I didn't. And now look at where it is. Talk about a nightmare scenario for any crypto enthusiast. And Vincent Van Code's tweet, it blew up precisely because it played on the fear of missing out. A playful way, of course. It was like a rallying cry wrapped in a bit of a joke. Now, the message behind the humor is actually crystal clear. Never underestimate XRP's potential. Now, if you're getting deja vu, it's because you've heard, or we all have really heard this kind of story before, haven't we? Right, Vincent's imaginary scenario, it echoes one of crypto's most famous cautionary tales. Now, I'm going to take you on that little journey, because we're going to be talking about Bitcoin here. Let's think about it. Bitcoin traded for mere pennies back in 2010. In fact, one famous early Bitcoiner spent 10,000 BTC on just 2 pizzas back in May of 2010. Yes, the legendary Bitcoin Pizza Day story, right? The man paid for pizza with what is now an absolute fortune. Those 10,000 BTC would be worth over $1.14 billion today. It's absolutely mind-blowing, right? And Bitcoin's price, around 15 years ago, was just 5 cents. Today, Bitcoin trades above $100,000 per coin. So just let that sink in, right? Plenty of early investors, they sold their Bitcoin way too soon, thinking it was just a fun experiment. And now they're kicking themselves every time that they remember those missed millions, or billions in some cases. So, in the crypto world, don't be that person who sold too early or didn't buy at all, is kind of basically the proverb. Vincent Van Code tapped right into that collective memory by saying, imagine explaining to your grandkids why you did not buy XRP at 50 cents. I mean, who would have thought that it could go to $5,000 that quickly, right? Now, he basically is comparing XRP today to Bitcoin back then, teasing the what if XRP is the next big one that people are sleeping on. Surely it was just, said with a bit of a wink, for sure it was, but a lot of XRP holders took it as validation of what they already hope. That holding XRP now could be like holding Bitcoin in its early days. No one wants to be the cautionary tale who missed the boat. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, okay, so this is all fun to imagine, but let's get real. $5,000 per XRP? Now, I do hear you here. I was skeptical too. XRP's price as of today is hovering somewhere between the $2 to $3 range. Yeah, something like $2, probably 40 at the point of recording, right? To be exact, or somewhere around there. So, $5,000 is a pretty huge leap from where we are today, isn't it? Now, I started doing some of the back and forth of the napkin math, and I bet that you did too, let's be honest. Now, the increase from, let's say, $2.60 to around $5 would be roughly $5,000 would be roughly 192,000%. In other words, that is a 1,920x gain. Yeah, imagine turning $1,000 investment into $1.9 million or $10,000 into $19 million. Heck, Vincent even spelled it out. If you held 20,000 XRP, which would cost you around $50,000 at the current prices, give or take, at $5,000 each, those coins would be worth $100 million. Yes, $100 million. That is life-changing money, multi-generational money-changing or life-changing money, just generational wealth territory. Now, before we all go and quit our day jobs and start planning to purchase some yachts, let's kind of take a deep breath here because it is time for a reality check and something that I absolutely need to say. Now, this might shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your own responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Alright, I'm glad that we got that out of the way. I know that the disclaimer is a bit of a buzzkill, but it is important, especially when we're throwing around some kind of fantastical numbers like $100 million portfolios, right? The last thing that I want is someone remortgaging their house because they heard some YouTuber talk about $5,000 XRP. Let's be smarter than that. So, is $5,000 XRP even remotely realistic? Or is this just pure hopium fueled for Twitter memes? Well, let's examine both sides of this argument, because I'm all about being cautiously optimistic here. Now, on the skeptical side, the challenges are pretty glaring. For XRP to hit $5,000, the total market value of XRP would have to be pretty astronomical, on the order of hundreds of trillions of dollars in market cap. Now, of course, market cap, it is just a calculation based on the the last traded price, I should say, and the circulating supply, right? So it's not really money. It's not anything more than just theoretical notion of value. So don't think that you're going to have hundreds of trillions of dollars flowing into XRP, because that's not the reality of the situation. But it is still going to require probably $1 to $2 trillion flowing in as, inflows of capital, or maybe hundreds of billions of dollars. It's still, quite a task. To put it all into perspective, $500 trillion is roughly the combined GDP of several of the largest, economies, right? And it's a figure that, at least with today's money, sounds a little bit absurd, doesn't it? But even many die-hard crypto analysts say that a $5,000 target is a little outlandish given the current landscapes. You know what? They do kind of have a point, or they do point out, I should say, that it would require nearly every single bank, every financial institution on the planet to be using XRP for their daily operations, or some kind of scenario where basically XRP has eaten into the entire kind of global financial system. I would also throw out there the other wild card, right, if we are talking about some pretty crazy stuff, is that maybe there's only a handful of XRP available to actually trade any one given time. And in which case, there's going to be a too much demand for the supply to handle, and therefore the price has to moon because of that. So if, for example, we were to see 99% of all of the XRP that's out there just disappearing into cold storage or something, then yeah, I think you could probably see some pretty imbalances or some pretty damn insane imbalances between the supply and the demand that could drive the price significantly higher. But in short, I guess not something that anyone really sees happening in at least in the next few years or even decades, right? So historically, we've had some pretty crazy predictions in crypto that just didn't pan out on a schedule, did they? Right? Remember John McAfee's infamous bet that Bitcoin would hit $1 million by 2020? Well, here's a spoiler. 2020, it came and it went, and BTC was nowhere near that target. And thankfully, of course, John didn't have to make good on his promise, not any extreme promises associated with that bet anyway. Right? The lesson was that take extravagant predictions with a rather large grain of salt. On the optimistic side, though, proponents have a rebuttal for all of this, right? Because no price is truly impossible in the crypto space. It's not just about a time frame, right? Or I should say, it is actually probably just about the time frame. Because you can tell an early Bitcoiner in 2010 that Bitcoin will hit $114,000 in 2025, and they probably would have laughed. Yep, here we are. So thinking about this, maybe $5,000 XRP is ridiculous if you expect it to happen next year, or maybe in the next 5 years. But what about in the next 25 years? Now, in Vincent's scenario, he's literally hinting at a generational timeline, isn't he? Grandkids and all of that. And interestingly, one long-term analysis from Changelly actually tied the forecast, or tried to forecast XRP's price by the year of 2050. And their projection for 2050 was about $3,152 per XRP. That's obviously not $5,000, but it's in the same kind of ballpark and shows that some semi-respectable analysts aren't completely ruling out multi-$1,000 prices in the far future. In fact, that Changelly outlook suggests that it could take 25 more years for XRP to even approach that range. So if you interpret Vincent's tweet, he didn't give a date, did he? He just said that quickly, in a kind of tongue-in-cheek kind of way. Quickly might mean something different when you're imagining telling your grandkids a story decades from now. Now, it might feel quick in hindsight. Here is how I see it, though. $5,000 is an extremely ambitious target, but the core message is about the power of long-term thinking. Vincent van Code's post wasn't a price prediction as much as it was a reminder that if you believe in something, truly believe in its long-term potential, then ignoring it now could be a big mistake. It's encouragement to do your own research, DYOR, and to not dismiss an opportunity just because the upside sounds crazy by today's standards. Now, I want to share just a little bit of a personal context here. Now, I am an XRP holder myself. There's no surprise in that, I am sure. I do run a crypto channel focusing on a lot of this stuff, right? Now, I'm cautiously optimistic about XRP. That means that I don't assume that it's going to go to $5,000 or even $500 or even $50 for that matter overnight. But I do see it as a project with some real staying power and room to grow over the years. Now let's think about what happened recently. Ripple, the company associated with XRP, has been on a bit of a roll. They've survived a brutal SEC lawsuit and come out even stronger, with much needed legal clarity back in 2023. You can fast forward to now, which is 2025, and Ripple is expanding rather aggressively. They just announced a $500 million funding round, valuing the company at over $40 billion. Right, we're talking major players like Fortress and Citadel pouring money in. Ripple's CEO, Brad Garlinghouse, even said 2025 has been a record year for the company and for crypto in general. They moved over $95 billion in payment volume this year through their RippleNet, launched a successful stablecoin called RLUSD, and acquired several different companies. Basically, Ripple is acting like a big-time fintech, not some fringe startup. Now, this kind of momentum, it gives XRP holders tangible reasons to feel bullish. If institutions are backing Ripple and its ecosystem, that it lends to that, at least some credence to those lofty long-term dreams. Now, it's not just blind faith here, right? There are some fundamentals that are improving too. So, does that justify $5,000? Well, not directly, but it does show that XRP is here to stay and could capture a much bigger slice of the world's finance pie in the future. Now, a common saying in crypto is this: never bet against innovation. So 10 years ago, the idea of Bitcoin at $100,000, it sounded pretty insane. Now it's reality. 5 years later, or 5 years ago, I should say, Ethereum was powering decentralized finance and non-fungible tokens that sell for millions of dollars. It sounded ridiculous, right? Yet here we are. Maybe in a couple of decades from now, an XRP at thousands of dollars might just be the story that we would tell about how crazy 2025 sounded. Who really knows? Now, let me balance that optimism with some practicality though. While I do hold XRP, I won't be that hypothetical grandpa who had 0 XRP after all. I managed to get my risk in order, right? Now, I'm not putting all of my life savings on that $5,000 dream. I treat XRP as one part of a much broader strategy, and crucially, I prepare for different outcomes. So here is a tip from my personal playbook that I think everyone should consider. Have multiple backup plans, especially with the exchanges. So if someday XRP does indeed moon, or shoot up dramatically, even to let's say $50 or $100, never mind 5,000, you can bet that exchanges will get overloaded. Now, we've seen this many times before. When crypto markets pump hard, sometimes exchanges, they freeze their withdrawals or go down due to traffic. Now, the last thing that you want is to be locked out of taking profits or moving funds because your one exchange is offline at the worst possible moment. That is why I've made a bit of a mission of mine to stay signed up and verify on a whole bunch of different crypto exchanges. I literally do have a plan A, B, C, and D when it comes to different trading platforms. For example, I use things like Binance, Coinbase, Kraken, amongst some of the more newer ones like 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗿 and BitGet, right? And a whole dope host of other ones too, including a lot of big names. Now, these two, 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰 and BitGet, are the ones that I use an awful lot, to be honest with you, for my day-to-day kind of trading activities. Now, in the description down below, you're going to find a link to my website where I list out all of the exchanges that I use on a regular basis, that I've KYC'd on, and what I trust myself. But here's the thing. On my website, and those links to those exchanges, they are all affiliate links, which means if you do use them, it doesn't cost you anything extra, but it does support the channel here. So I'd like to say a big thank you if you do go ahead and use them. But of course, there is no pressure. The point is, if exchange A has an issue, I can jump over to exchange B. And if exchange B is down, well, I can just jump over to exchange C. It's kind of like having multiple exit doors in a crowded theater. You hope that you never need them, but it's good to know that they are there. And this strategy, it has saved my bacon in past bull runs when one platform would suddenly announce maintenance right when I wanted to sell or transfer. So don't put all of your eggs in one basket with these exchanges. It's part of not underestimating this space too, right? Be optimistic, but also be prepared for the practical hiccups that come with the success. Now, circling back to that bigger question, will XRP truly make grandpas regret not buying XRP in 2025? Honestly, I don't have a crystal ball for that one. It could go either way. Maybe XRP never really breaks 3 digits, right? And all of this 5K talk just remains a fun piece of folklore. Or maybe, just maybe, the crypto economy in 20 to 30 years is just so massive that even $5,000 XRP isn't even that far-fetched. Consider things like inflation over decades or new financial systems being built on the blockchain. Right? If XRP becomes a backbone for global money transfers, who is to say what its value could be in 2050? It's definitely hard to imagine now, but that's the nature of the exponential tech adoption that we see here. It always seems crazy until it actually happens. What I do know is that nobody wants to live with the regret of a missed opportunity that they actually researched and believed in. Now, I've done if you have done your own homework on XRP, you're going to see the promise in its technology and its ecosystem. Vincent's message is essentially just don't ignore it, right? Even if you're skeptical of $5,000, you might decide that it's worth having just a little in your portfolio, just in case lightning strikes twice in crypto land. And on the flip side, you also don't want to be the person who went all in because of a meme and then it didn't pan out, right? So it's a balancing act here, caution and conviction. Those two, they can actually coexist. Let's go ahead and zoom out for a second, because beyond the price, one thing that's become clear from this whole episode is the passion of the XRP community. When a developer's tongue-in-cheek tweet can set off such a discussion, you know that people are emotionally invested in this. There's a mood in the air that after years of being written off, XRP is back in the conversation in a rather big way. Right? People are energized. Some might say borderline hyped. And sure, hype can be dangerous if unchecked, but it can also be a sign of real momentum. So if it feels like it too, right? At least it does to me. Now, I've seen and been in crypto long enough to see cycles come and go, and there's a familiar optimism creeping in right now that reminds me of past build-ups. Now, it doesn't mean that we're going to moon tomorrow, but it's encouraging for the longer term. Now, as we approach the end of this story today, here is my personal takeaway from the $5,000 XRP saga. It's actually less about the destination and more about the mindset. Dreaming about the big, outrageous prices, they force us to ask, what if? What if XRP really changes the game in global finance? What if holding a portion for the long haul could pay off massively? Asking what if is good. It opens up the world of possibilities. But you also have to ask how likely and in what time frame, and plan accordingly. So, am I telling you that XRP will make you a millionaire? No. Thanks. That's for you to decide all on your own based on your own research and your own risk tolerances. Remember the disclaimer from earlier. But what I am sharing is why I personally choose to hold some XRP and stay tuned in here, because I've seen enough in this space to know that anything can truly happen, both the unbelievably good and the devastatingly bad. Cautious optimism means that I prepare for both ends of that spectrum. I accumulate and I hold because I believe in the potential, but I stay realistic and diversified because nothing is ever guaranteed. In the end, whether XRP hits $5, $50, or $5,000, I think Vincent van Gogh succeeded in one thing here. He got us all to actually pause and to think, to imagine the future conversations with our grandkids or friends and ask, will I have regrets about how I acted today? For me, I wanted to be able to say, I took the opportunity, but I did it wisely. No grandpa guilt here, if I can help it anyway. And hey, if that $5,000 XRP scenario ever does come true, you know that I'm going to be here making a very shocked follow-up video, right? Probably from a new kind of spaceship or something futuristic like that. And if it doesn't, well, we've learned a lot and shared one heck of a story and a ride in the process. One thing for sure, though, is that the conversation around XRP's future is alive and louder than it has ever been. And I'm glad to be here for it, learning and growing alongside all of you guys. So whether you're an XRP army or just crypto curious, keep questioning, keep researching, and keep dreaming responsibly. Oh, and don't forget to join our Discord if you haven't done so already. I'd love to hear what you think about all of this as well. And it's better to navigate these waters as a community together. If you found this deep dive useful, informative, then make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll catch you all in the next one.